Hello and welcome to the United Stand. The Paul Pogba versus Jose Mourinho war, whatever is going on, has to stop. Has to stop fast. There is clearly a problem going on and it is detrimental to the most important thing to all of us, which is Manchester United Football Club. There's clearly a problem there. What went on in the Sevilla game, what's been going on for the last few weeks? Paul Pogba is not the best midfielder in Europe elect at the moment. That is abundantly clear. Jose Mourinho has pulled him off at half-time against Spurs. He has dropped him against Huddersfield. He has dropped him in a big game against Sevilla. And regardless of however we dress it up, this is Manchester United's most important phase of the season. We've got Chelsea coming up at home in the league, Liverpool coming up at home in the league, Sevilla that second leg, FA Cup game against Brighton. And at United at the moment, you know, regardless of how much we want to praise a lad from the youth system, and regardless of the fact that he keeps playing a player like Matic, who I would say is probably our worst performing player for the last 2 months, favouritism of Mourinho again, is that an issue? But the reality is, whichever side you're on, Mourinho or Pogba, for United fans, it really shouldn't be an issue of what side you're on. It's about what's best for Manchester United. Mourinho doing what he was brought in to do, winning us trophies, progressing the club, is a positive. Pogba running the midfield is a positive. As we said last night, the reality is, Sevilla, if people want to say Scott McTominay had a good game, I don't really care. The reality is, the bottom line is, whether it's McTominay, Carrick, Matic, Herrera, although he's injured now, the reality is, if you pick any of those 4 players, and let's throw Fellaini in when he's fit, if you pick any of those players over Paul Pogba, it is like picking a Nathan Redmond ahead of a Lionel Messi, because that is the ability Paul Pogba has. It's not a there's no decision to be made about, oh, I'm going to drop Pogba for Matic or McTominay. That's stupid. In the most obvious sense, it is a stupid decision, because Paul Pogba is head and shoulders the best midfielder we have. He's the best we have, and unless he is injured or suspended, as we've already seen this season, he should not be out of that side. He can only be out of that side because there is an issue between the manager and the player. Now, if Pogba's gone up to the manager behind the scenes and disrespected him in front of the dressing room, then Mourinho's got to act. But if that's happened, then why has it happened, and why has a line not been drawn under it? It could well be that that's the case. It could be that Mourinho's doing his Martial and Shaw trick, where there's certain players that he just doesn't like and he treats them differently to others. And we've seen the evidence of that. Whether it's Anthony Martial, Luke Shaw and now Paul Pogba, they are treated very, very differently to the likes of Marouane Fellaini, Nemanja Matic, Phil Jones, McTominay now. These are his favourites. These are his players that no matter what the performance, he backs them, he publicly backs them, he can't shut up about them, and he loves them. And that's fine. But it's abundantly clear to the fans that there's a difference in the way he treats some players and others. I mean, Paul Pogba, as I said last night, when he was at Manchester United the first time, he decided to go against the greatest manager there's ever been in any industry, Sir Alex Ferguson. He decided that Sir Alex Ferguson saying to him as a teenager, you're not quite ready yet, but I will use you. You've got a great future at Manchester United. He decided to ignore that advice and go to Juventus with his agent, who loves a big piece of pie in the form of a big signing on fee. Pogba decided that was best for him to do. Now, arguably, he wasn't wrong. He went and won a number of Serie A titles. But then he's come back to Manchester United with his agent getting a bigger piece of the pie, and he's the top dog at Manchester United. Or so he thought. So to think that Paul Pogba isn't capable of putting himself before Manchester United would be wrong. The evidence is out there. And United need to tread very, very carefully. And if it comes down to a situation of who's more important, Pogba or Mourinho, then I can't give you that answer. You can give that answer. Give that comment below. This is what the point of the show is. Who is more important to Manchester United, Paul Pogba or Mourinho for our future? I'm not answering that question because it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in May. Mourinho's not going to be sacked in May or leave in May. And Pogba's not going to be sold in May or leave in May. So they are going to be here next season. So I don't need to make a decision about who's better for Manchester United. What I want and demand as a Manchester United fan is that those two people sort it out. It is embarrassing to the club. It is detrimental to the club. And we are struggling because of that battle. The media focus is on that. David De Gea put in a fantastic world-class performance. It hid Mourinho's ineptitude. It hid our defence and midfield's inefficiencies. because his individual performance and Sevilla's poor finishing allowed us to get what was a very good result last night, 0-0. In the cold light of day, that's not a disaster because it could have been anything. And David De Gea got us that result. It was nothing about tactics. It was nothing about performance. The midfield and defence was shocking, and the attack was starved of service again. If you put an average goalkeeper in that team, we'd probably lose 2 or 3-0, and we're probably out of that tie. So David De Gea, world-class goalkeeper. Is he going to get fed up? I mean, we think about the Manchester United fan perspective, and I want to know what you think in the comments, because that's why we're doing this video today. But personally, I'm fed up of it. I'm tired of it. I don't really care who's right or wrong. It's the middle of February. This is the business end of the season, and all our time and effort is being spent talking about Pogba versus Mourinho. It is bloody amateurish. It is amateur hour at Manchester United. We have got the biggest club in the world, the biggest fan base in the world, massive revenues generated by that fan base. We are a business. We are a brand. And this needs stamping out by the people at the top, whether it's Sir Alex Ferguson, Ed Woodward, the Glazers, Sir Bobby Charlton. Somebody needs to take hold of this situation and resolve it. It is the middle of February, business end of the season. We can't sell players. We can't be dropped. The reality is, with Paul Pogba, our midfield is decimated. It is the laughing stock of the top six. We've got the worst midfield in the top six at the moment. Unfortunately, well, fortunately for us, Arsenal won't be catching us. So we're in a battle with 4 other teams for 4th, 5th, 4th, 3rd and 2nd. And at the moment, our midfield will get overrun by any of those. And our attack is not as good as those teams because we're not providing it with information. We're providing it with information. We're not providing it with the service. Pogba's got to play. Carrick can't play. Fellaini's injured. Herrera's injured. McTominay's got to play. Matic has got to play, and Pogba's got to play. So we've got to solve this issue. And Mourinho has got to swallow it. He's got to swallow it because Manchester United without Pogba is, it's like a blunt pencil. We're not gonna write anything great. We're not, because we're unable to. He is a £90 million player. He's our most expensive player. He's our best player, and certainly in that midfield area, he must play. He's got to play, and this has got to be resolved. And I'm not defending Pogba. Pogba's performance, he was on for most of the game, and Herrera in a 15-minute cameo before he was injured was streaks ahead of him. There's something wrong with Pogba. Some would feel that Pogba's form, much like Anthony Martial's, is understandable when you're treated like that. Alexis Sanchez comes in and it's upset the apple cart. Fan cams, make sure you watch them after this. Some really good opinions from the fans who travelled out to Sevilla about selections, about what the Sanchez signing has done to United. Really, really interesting ones. But in relation to Pogba, it's got to stop. It's got to stop. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but these next few games are really important. I think we're going to beat Chelsea, and I think we're going to beat Chelsea with Pogba. But I think that game has got to draw a line under all of this. The crowd's going to be up for it. There's a big rivalry there, a personal rivalry between Mourinho and Conte. He's got 3 or 4 days to sort his squad out. He's got 3 or 4 days to unite that team together, because it looks like a bunch of strangers at the moment. A bunch of strangers with the odd individual performance, and that's not how you beat teams. We're Manchester United. We need to be united on the pitch. The crowd's going to bring it on Sunday. Chelsea are going to bring a performance. They played quite well against Barcelona. We need to bring a performance. And if Pogba's on the pitch putting in 70% of his efforts, because that's what he put in last night, visibly, it just wasn't Paul Pogba, then we're going to struggle in that midfield. We're carrying Matic at the moment. His form is abysmal. We're relying on a 21-year-old who's played a handful of games. I'd seriously be thinking, can we get Twansibi or Fosu Mensah back? Because that midfield lacks energy, tenacity and desire. And at least you're going to get that with those 2 players. Whether they're ready or not, I think they are. But they've got to be better than the alternatives of Matic at the moment and a Pogba who just looks out of sorts. But this is why Jose Mourinho's paid the money. And I must say that as somebody who backs Mourinho, the fan on the fan cam last night said this, Mourinho's paid a lot of money every week, and there seems to be this sort of myth going around that, it's not Mourinho's fault. He's brought these players to this club. He's paid massive amounts of money to get this club working. That midfield has disintegrated on his watch. He's got to sort that midfield out. It's very simple. Manchester United sorts their midfield out. Manchester United can have a really good end to this season. And why is the midfield struggling? Effectively, it's not just Pogba, but if you do sort that Pogba situation out, then you do sort out Manchester United's issues. And it's got to stop. The Pogba versus Mourinho war has got to stop. It's embarrassing to a club like Manchester United. It's undermining to the season that we're trying to achieve. And as Manchester United fans, do we really want to be sat here in the middle of February, our most important part of the season, discussing which side we're going on? Are we going with the manager, or are we going with our most iconic player? I'll tell you what side I choose. I choose Manchester United. I choose what's best for Manchester United. And what's best for Manchester United is that those two people get over it and start sorting it out. Because the middle of February is not the time for the manager to be making an example of our best player in the midfield. It's not the time. It's cutting your nose off to spite your face, and it's got to stop. And that's what management's all about. He's got to sort this out ASAP. And if he can't sort it out, people in power can. Fans are already worried that Mini Raiola's going to start feeding stuff out into the social media if Pogba keeps getting treated like this. We don't know how Pogba's being treated. We don't need to know how Pogba's being treated. We don't need to know what the true story is behind it all. What we need to see is a united Manchester United on the football pitch. And that means Mourinho and Pogba in harmony. They need to sort it out. Get commenting below. Give us your thoughts on the situation. It's all anybody's talking about, and it's wrong. We should be talking about De Gea this morning and this afternoon and later on. We'll be back live at 8 o'clock tonight. Got a really good show planned for you. Might even take a few of your calls as well. Please do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the United Stand if you're new. And get commenting below. This is a big point, a big debate point. What are your thoughts on it? And also, don't forget to go and watch the fan cams. They went up quite late last night, so I know a lot of you won't have seen them. Hit the eye in the top corner and go through them. Most of them are only a couple of minutes long. But the opinions of the fans at the ground, very, very interesting in relation to the aftermatch show, the call-in we had last night. Lots of people very frustrated and negative. Very interesting for you to see what the fans who travelled out to Sevilla and watched that game thought of it. Some very interesting opinions on Mourinho. So get clicking and get watching. I'll speak to you all live at 8 o'clock. Thanks for watching.